Okay. It's bugging me that it's not showing the right thumbnail, but let me okay, so just let me know which one um because I see two different ones. Is it just okay. Because I did schedule one just in case. Why is it saying only 8 seconds though? Oh, that is that is okay. YouTube's being very weird now. It is from what I'm seeing, it is messing up so bad on my end.
There's
Okay.
like 4 live streams.
Okay. Okay.
Wait, we're live?
We're
Ooh,
back
Okay.
up.
Okay.
I
Okay.
blanked and go.
All right. Let's start this again. Let's do take two. Okay. All
At
right.
this point, it might as well be take 5.
Yeah, take five. Yeah. Welcome everyone to the fifth episode of Sonic Lore with Radar. I'm your host, Leah Serenity Rose, and I am joined here by my very good buddy Monarch.
Hello and good morrow.
And as well as the amazing lore master himself, Radar.
5 episodes, everyone. 5. Count them all. Count them on your on your one hand. Seriously, how? I didn't think I'd get this far. I don't think anyone did, but I'm happy to be here all the same. And this is definitely going to be one of my most difficult episodes yet. You guys thought that things are going to be tough just explaining the Sonic lore in itself. No, 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 no. With Classic, it's fairly easy. Adventure slash Dreamcast, it's, it is what it is. Modern, still developing, so of course it's going to be a bit. And then IDW is, another page to look into, but it's nothing hard for me. This one in particular is a very special case.
Yeah, we are going to be discussing the Sonic Prime TV show lore.
Great.
Grudgingly possible.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, let's get started with this, shall we?
Yes, I know a lot of people have quite some things to say on a show like this. So, let's just get on with it already.
All
I know the
right.
two of you would have questions to ask of me in regards to the series, and now with the spoiler embargo pretty much over with, we can just talk about all quote unquote 3 seasons of the show here and now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
So
However, do want to say before we head on to the questions real quick, because I almost forgot to do this. For those new that are joining in on the stream, hello, I am Radar the Maned Wolf, also known as Funfoof the Cartoon, pretty much anywhere else. I have been creating this document detailing the main Sonic canon for the past 4 years, and it contains pretty much a summary of the video games, the IDW comics, and as well as the joint in animations created by Tyson Hess and the Powerhouse Animation team. Uh, Other animations by Marza Animation Planet Studios. I'm pretty much I hope I didn't butcher your name, Marza. Oh my gosh, I was trying to say your full name. And as well as the prequel comics, much from that of the IDW teams. Whoops, that's my desktop. And Sonic Channel, and as well as the Japanese material as well. However, amidst the time I was working on this project, Sonic Prime was set to release, and we would be given a few details about a few months into the wait during 2022. And then the wait was finally over when we finally found out more details of the show. In a Roblox game. where the first episode of Sonic Prime came out a week early on the Sonic Speed Simulator game on Roblox, the official Sonic affiliated Roblox game. And just by the first episode, it was interesting, but strange. There were plot points that were not expected coming into this show. Mainly that of Sonic and Co. explaining how Green Hill is their home, and among other things, like Sonic never seeing animals power, Sonic never seeing Badniks being powered by anything but animals, and among other things such as Sonic not really having not excuse me, or the fact that Sonic has never witnessed Eggman actually win against their fights before. And it's like there was a lot in that first episode, but it was just that, the first episode. We couldn't base anything off of just that alone. So then the show came out. Well, the first season of the show came out, and it was interesting because there was a lot of good, but there wasn't a lot of great either. Except for Shadow. Because in the show, Shadow's like the best part of the show by far. Like, honestly, the best he's ever been characterized in recent years, which was a relief to a lot of Shadow fans. I should know. But at the same time, again, there was a lot of stuff being shown in the exposition of the show that was it didn't make a lot of sense because it outright contradicted a bunch of stuff that had occurred in the recent Sonic lore. And the reason I bring this up is because it was confirmed by the executive producer of Sonic Prime, Logan. I believe, if I recall his name, Logan McPherson. Ferguson. That's a P in there. Logan McPher. Logan. Bleh. Words, ladies and gentlemen. Logan McPherson. I'm gonna say that and try not to butcher it the way I go. Yeah, he is executive producer of the show, and he had confirmed that on multiple occasions that Sonic Prime was canon in the sense that it took place within the timeline of the games, the same way it does in IDW, the same way IDW does. He talked about the fact that it pretty much took place within the mythos of modern Sonic. And it is and pretty much how Prime was canon is in similar vein to IDW comics, where the external media are they're what I like to call the extra pages of the video games. They are side stories within the context of the video games. As you know, IDW based off its first stories after the events of Sonic Forces, which was the last game at the time. However, with Sonic Prime, it starts off pretty self-contained, and even then, it's still pretty self-contained throughout the show. There are flashbacks in the show that hint at to Sonic Origins, what with Sonic telling about when he first met Tails in Emerald Hill on West Side Island, and Sonic reminding himself, at least somewhat, of his fight against Knuckles in Hidden Palace on Angel Island. However, that's really all we got at the time, as to like, oh, hey, it's like this is tied to the video games and stuff. It's like, you know, these are like the same stories, but it wasn't really much to go off of. So then come season 2, we were expecting a little bit more, at least. And season 2 brought a lot of good on the table, even improving off of season 1. But there weren't much of flashbacks or anything to like past games or other events that happened supposedly in the canon in relation to Prime. And we were left on another cliffhanger. So then we would eventually come to season 3. at the beginning of this year, where we did get one more flashback in the weirdest example possible. And that flashback was mid-season through, and it was Sonic reminiscing on the events of Sonic Advance 3. Specifically, the boss fight dealt with Eggman and Gemerl in Sunset Hill. And that was it. Apart from like explaining like events of the games, like in relation to Prime being canon, that was all we had. It was just the fact that Prime took place in some nebulous point in time after Advance 3. And Ian talked about this, Ian Flynn, he had talked about this, is that he was a story consultant on the show, where he pretty much provided input to the animation team, and as well as the writers and such, like as a representative of the lore team that is currently going on with Sega, who are streamlining the timeline, the official timeline that's being created. However, there have been some reports on the fact that it's very possible that Ian's input wasn't too much taken into consideration. Not saying that he was outright ignored, just not a lot of the things that Ian provided was conveyed into Prime as it was expected to. There were some things that he provided, such as Birdie's inclusion in Prime, where Amy's little bird friend, the pink bird, in the show, it would have relation to the fact that that bird was E102 Gamma's bird from the events of Sonic Adventure. The bird that powered Gamma in that story. However, aside from that, we do not know anything else that Ian provided to the show. So the only things we really have to go off of is the fact that Sonic 1, Sonic CD, Sonic 2, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sonic Adventure, and Sonic Advance 3 all happen in relation to Prime. But that still doesn't help Prime's case. Because again, there's a lot of contradictory stuff out of that first episode in season 1, and even then, a lot of that isn't really resolved, nor is it explained, and some of the plot points aren't explained that well either. Prime is a very interesting bundle. It's a very interesting bundle. That's it. I don't know what else to say. I do like the show for what it is. I did enjoy the show, much like the other Sonic shows I've watched in the past. However, saying this is canon, I mean, yes, I have a page dedicated to the show, but that was just me giving it the benefit of the doubt while it was coming out. And I can confidently say that what with Netflix doing its thing where it separated a whole season animated into 3 seasons, because that's a thing that Netflix has done before. On certain shows, the animation teams would only make like one streamlined animation show. Like it would only be 1 season technically, but then it would be separated into 3, either saving on time or saving on money or whatever it is Netflix is doing over there. And I've said it before, and I've said it, and I'll say it again. This show was definitely not meant for this format. As unfortunate as it is for me to say, I do generally feel like that this show would have been fine as just a one-way through release, but I could be wrong. It just sucks because even after that, we're probably not going to be able to get any more of the show. However, we are supposedly getting an adaptation of the show in the form of an IDW graphic novel, so I will be looking into that when that comes out. But I doubt it really is anything different. It's an adaptation, but I don't know what else is going to be changing out of it. But yeah, Sonic Prime is interesting, and that's why we're going to be talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to share my thoughts on this. Just because, again, I gave the show the benefit of the doubt when it was said to be canon, and even then, it's very not to be the case. And as much as much I've been told to, like, oh, if you don't think the show was canon, why do you have the page? Because I put so much effort into it. I was the only one who actually looked into the show and all of its detailings and such. You know, I mean, yes, it'll be settled within the archive of the document, but I I have a weird brain. I'm just gonna let it slide. Anywho, um, now that I've got my thoughts out of the way in regards to the show, like, again, no hate to the show whatsoever, none at all, really. Like, I really love what the show did, especially shout outs to Devin Mack and Ian Hanlon as both Sonic and Shadow. Loved what they did, loved what they did. And Kazumi Evans as the Rouges, really liked her takes, and even just as Prime Rouge and such. But you know, it is what it is. We can only hope to see more of the Shatterverse. Well, some fans would want to see more of the Shatterverse, because there is still potential there. I know a lot of other fans aren't really as excited or interested like me and some others are, but oh well. That's how cookie crumbles. So Leah, did you have your questions wanting to be asked?
Yes, I do. I am very curious about the paradox prism because they don't really explain, but I am looking here at the wiki. I don't know how accurate it is, but apparently each of the I guess paradox prism controls a different aspect, you could say. And I want to know your thoughts on like the different abilities that the paradox prism each of the gems actually do.
Just their individual powers, so to
Mhm.
say.
Yes, their individual powers.
Understood. So 4 out of the 5 have their powers realized, while the fifth one is not as it's not as like looked into all that much, but there it does have a power, but um actually no, it pretty much is just 4 out of the 5 prism shards that have their individual powers realized. So, giving context for people who probably don't have Netflix or exactly what is Sonic Prime and such, basically, in within Green Hill on South Island, within the Temple Mountain, there was a rumored gem to be hidden away within its rock called the Paradox Prism, and Eggman was wanting to use it for his own, world takeover plans in whatever capacity he was going to use them. Um, and as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, and Rouge are fighting off the Badnik horde that were fighting, while Eggman was trying to unearth the prism from its rock pedestal. Well, I call it a pedestal. It looked very, very. It looked like it was meant to be there in that spot. But Sonic was going to try and cut Eggman off from the Prism's grasp, but in the middle of him spin dashing, in the middle of him homing attacking, specifically, he ended up shattering the Prism, and it broke into 5 pieces. And each of those 5 pieces delved themselves into their respective shatter spaces that were created following the blast of the Prism. The first Prism shard is the red one, and it comes from New York City. That shard in particular is known as the Energy Crystal, utilized by the Chaos Council during their territorial takeover and within the creation of New York City. That shard in particular is able to heavily power electronics. The shard was mainly used at the Yoke HQ to power the whole city, and it's also used to amplify the Egg Forcer fleet. That whole army. The shard is also used to power the Chaos Council's mech suits, as seen in season 2. Just overall, a power boost to electronics. Depending on where it's being directed to, anyways. The second shard we see in the show is the green one, and that's found in the boss cage maze. That shard in particular is called the Heart of the Jungle, to the scavengers and to the residents in the boss cage. The Heart of the Jungle is able to basically create flora out of thin air, basically. So sorry about this. Should not be talking without having water, but I guess that's on me though. Yeah, capable of creating just you as it was utilized by Thorn Rose in those mid episodes, the mid season episodes of season 1. Basically your trees and plants just come out of thin air, depending on where you strike it. Thorn attached it to her hammer, and with every strike of the ground, a new tree or any kind of plant would grow from that spot. And the same thing happens in season 2 when Sonic is fighting Dr. Dell and Dr. Babel, in which he strikes the shard onto the ground, and then spiked vines come up from the ground. The third shard is the blue one that is residing in the No Place. That shard in particular is called the Devil's Lighthouse, and it is capable of controlling lightning, whirlwinds, just basically tropical storms within the great seas of the No Place. From what I know is that where the Devil's Lighthouse was located, it was at the highest island, the highest peaked mountain that's on an island in the No Place. And going off of the fact that all the shatter spaces are based off of Green Hill, that was actually the tip-top peaks of the Temple Mountain, where the original Paradox Prism was found in Green Hill. So just a little interesting thing there. But yeah, and then it's also utilized as an electrical conduit, or I say conduit. I'm trying to think of a different word, but that's the best I can come up with. Where Captain Dread, Knuckles the Dread, he had the shard in his possession around season 2, and as he was fighting the Egg Forcers, the shard amplified its power onto Dread's sword and shot lightning out of it, which I think is really cool, really cool. And then the final shard, which powers are fully realized, is the purple shard, which is found within the Grim, as Nine called it. The purple shard is able to basically turn lifeless objects into whatever the person is thinking of. Whereas 9 used a bunch of the resources he took from his old home in New York City or anything else he scavenged around the Grim, and he would transform it into whatever he desired. Like he'd turn a coconut, excuse me, he'd turn a regular rock into a coconut with the energy of the prism shard, or so much so as we see with the fully realized paradox prism in season 3. He would turn a bunch of cylinder type of objects in his lab, and he would use the energy to create those cylinders into his robots. I guess you can say it has a similar vein, that power, to the Phantom Ruby, but that it doesn't actually mean anything. Like, no, it's just similar in power, so to say. Like, turning your thoughts into reality, in a specific way, but they're not related in any way. The last shard, however, is the yellow shard, which is found in the ghostly remains of Sonic's world, the Prime World, or Ghost Hill, as it's called. We don't exactly know what the point of the yellow shard is, aside from the fact that it serves as the Shatter Space core, as like, because Shadow and 9 talked about it, where Ghost Hill was like is basically, Shadow said is like he didn't know if the Shatter Space was decaying or if it wasn't fully formed yet, because it was the only Shatter Space out of the others that he could actually go into following his chaos control into the Shatterverse. Or more importantly, as 9 put it, it's an embryonic Shatter Space. Like it got caught in the blueprint form while forming. And the yellow shard was what was keeping Ghost Hill together, and as well as created the ghostly replicas of Sonic's friends following the blast. The Ghost Tails, Rouge, Knuckles, Birdie, Amy, and Big and Froggy especially. That is all we have to go off of for the yellow shard, because as soon as it was taken out of Ghost Hill, things started to fracture. But the same thing happened to the other Shatter Spaces as well, so again, we don't really know exactly going on there, but that is basically what the prism shards do in that regard. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I hope I was able to answer your question there, Leah, talking about the shards powers.
Oh yeah, yeah. The yellow one is so much very mysterious out of the five. Like at least you kind of see the demonstration of the other shards. In within specific scenes, so it does clue you in on what it does. But the yellow one is like I think I think you are on the right track, that the yellow one was keeping Ghost Hill pretty much together until when 9 took all of the shards. Then yeah, that's when it actually started to decay. So I think the yellow one was keeping Ghost Hill pretty much together in a way. That's definitely that's something I've noticed too. It's like, yeah, I think that's what it was doing, but I don't know if that's its only function. Like you said, it's very hard to tell if it had any other function other than keeping Ghost Hill together. Yeah. I found it a very interesting concept with the paradox prism. Because I know the multiverse is like a very like it's kind of like it's like a concept that's been around for a long time. But I found it very interesting how they kind of incorporated it into Sonic Prime, where it's like, oh, it's because of a mistake that, these shatter spaces, kind of exist, because of Sonic's mistake, of shattering it and doing that.
And
So
even then, it's like it's not really like the whole multiverse or anything. The multiverse was already a thing prior to Prime, anyways. Well, with Sonic having go into multiple dimensions and also the Soul Dimension as well. But it's a thing where it's like it's a multiverse within a multiverse. Or it's like it's very strange. It's like the shatter spaces are connected to the Prime world, but if we were to take Prime as part of the canon, the other dimensions out there within the multiverse aren't connected to the Shadowverse. So like it's don't really know how it works, to be honest, or especially what we with at the end of the show, we don't really get to see we don't really see everyone return. Well, they do go back to their homes. It's just that we don't really see an aftermath, or we don't exactly see basically we were just left with the fact that everyone went back home and the shatter spaces exist. That's pretty much it. It's just like, okay, we don't get to see the fact that they do they have a way of traveling between each other still? Is there or the shatter spaces gone following the time re-loop thing, the do-over? It's just the flashpoint. It's just I don't. Prime is interesting. That's my catchphrase with this episode. Prime is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can really say on the matter. Anywho, I believe there's people talking in the chat, and I will go ahead and take care of that. Pull it up here on my side. Hello, Dolius. Hello, Rain Boom. Hello, Sullen. Let's see here. What did you enjoy most about Sonic Prime? According, asked by Dolius the Wolf. There was a lot of things I liked about Prime. I feel like there were some things that they were definitely interesting to me in concept, and some executions did work out for the most part, but it was it was just there. What did I like about Prime? There were some things I did like within the Shadowverse. I did mainly like New York City. I did like its design and everything, and all the different like some of the different environments, like the Scareport, the mothership itself, and then I guess the districts, even though they don't really look too different aside from their respective banners and propaganda spread across the city. Boss Cage Maze and No Place were fine. They're fine. Nothing too special to write home about. Obviously, Green Hill and the original location, I thought it looked beautiful. What with it being Green Hill's first time appeared. Well, no. Green Hill's second time appearing in a TV show, because by technicality, going off of the, I'm going to mention Sonic X here, because Green Hill does show up in that show. It's where Sonic and Co. live on their planet in that show. So yeah, this is the second time but this is the first time Green Hill, as it looks like from the games, appears in a TV show for the first time. So yeah. What else did I happen to like? There were a lot of designs I really liked. Like some of the Egg Forcer variants I really did enjoy. I thought the Egg Forcers were cool. Yeah, they were shown ad nauseum in a lot of the show. I was kind of hoping for a bit more variety in the robots, and I guess that's why I'm kind of thankful that they went and created the Jumbo Egg Forcer in season 2. Those guys are my favorite version of them by far. Just because I like the weaponry. The mech suits were cool from the Chaos Council. I think the ones I like most. I think I like Mr. Dr. Eggman's the most, just because it actually looks like a relatively, it definitely looks like, like an actual like straight up egg mech from the games or something. Like um it's something else. I didn't consider Deep's suit to be a mech of its own, but I could, just because it feels, it I mean, it technically is, but it's not like, it looks like a robot or anything. It's just like a suit he puts on himself. And then, Babel's suit is hit or miss. I really wish we could have learned more about the other modules of weaponry he had on his um characters and such. Um, Characters. I like the Tailses. I really liked all the Tailses. Nine, Mangy, and Sails. I really like them all, especially Nine. I know a lot of people aren't really that much of a fan of Nine in some spaces I'm in, but like I really do like Nine as a character. Um, the Roses as well, Rusty, Thorn, and Black Rose. I really like their dynamic. In season 3, really did. I know a lot of people did. Um, Boss Cage Birdie is my favorite out of them. I like Renegade Nux more than the others. Like Dread's cool. Gnarly is, well, he's, kind of feels like the stick stand-in, to be honest. But like I really do like Renegade Nux. Really do like him. I don't know, it's probably his accent that he has with his voice. Out of the Rouges, yeah, Rebel Rouge. I really liked her more just because didn't really feel too much off from like Prime Rouge. I suppose so. Shadow was the best. 10 out of 10. Would love to see him come back in that characterization specifically. Love what they did with him there. Chaos Sonic was cool. I really did like Chaos Sonic. He's silly. He's goofy, and he's annoying by design. That's funny. At least the way he did it, anyways, and it was funny. I really like Chaos Sonic. Again, shout out to Devin Mack. All of the Alpha Grims and the Troopers by extension were all pretty cool. I really liked seeing, like, oh my gosh, like a robot version of Rouge, another robot Knuckles, another robot Amy, a robot Bird. I just like, and then Grim, oh my god, Grim Big. No, you know what? I liked all of Nine's robots, but Grim Big was by far my favorite. Just robot Big. When are you gonna see that? Come on. Like, well, technically, I recall that Archie did something there, but like, hey, in this day and age, who would have thought, huh? Big robot, literally. And the Froggy Palms are my favorite thing ever. I cherish them forever. Uh, oh my gosh. And then also, what else? The Chaos Council exist. I'll say I will say out of all of them, Deep and Don't are my favorite. Dr. Deep is funny. He's the funniest one out of them. I really like him, and like I wasn't really like I didn't really like I didn't really like feel for Don't, but I had some other friends of mine who really liked him, and I was just like, okay, yeah, I see the appeal. Babel is there. Mr. Dr. Eggman exists, and I guess Dunnit. I like Dunnit when he's bouncing off of Deep, like their dynamic during season 2. Like I thought that was pretty funny. But like Dunnit by himself, he's the old guy, I suppose. Orbot and Cubot were non-existent, but it's nice getting to see them again animated. And then I also am going to be shouting out 2 background characters in particular who had a lot more speaking lines than I would have thought. Squad Commander Red from New York City and Jack from No Place. Those 2 are my favorites that have shown up as original characters from the show. In the sense that they aren't characters based off of Tails, Big, Amy, Rouge, or Knuckles. They're not Shatter Space variants. They are their own characters from those worlds, and I like them, but I'm not going to say why because that's going to make me too obvious in this fandom. But I really like them, and I was really happy to see them return because they were only featured in season 1, mostly, and then they came back in season 3 in the final battle against Nine and the Alpha Grims, and I just thought, yes, perfect, thank you, Wild Brain, thank you for doing that. And then I'm pretty sure that's it. Oh, shout out to all the different weapon designs as well. I thought they were all cool, especially the resistances. Like they had like plasma guns where they were like retrofitted from Egg Forcer parts. I just thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, all in all, like there were some things I did like from Prime, some things more than others, but I did happen to like it. I did enjoy the show for what it was. Not in the sense that it was supposed okay, admittedly, yes, I did come for it being canon, but I did stay for the show itself. So, and yeah, it's also kind of why the show, its page I written here is at the bottom of the project, just because the more important stuff of the project is up at the top. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I got going on for Prime. That's what I like in particular. Let's see here, Sullen. Or the nose place shard is also called Me Beauty. Yeah. Oh my god. I literally saw when season 2 came out, Knuckles the Dread. When he finally got his possession on the no place shard because of his backstory and everything, he would not stop calling it Me Beauty. And I saw the most funniest tweet during the releases of these episodes was that someone, I don't remember who, and I would like to know where the original source is from, but like someone posted out, start a drinking challenge for every time Knuckles the Dread says Me Beauty in the show. And I would not wish that upon my worst enemy. Oh my god, he says that so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would pretty much be like the worst drinking game ever. That's what a time. Anywho, all right, let's see what we got here. Leah, did you have another question by any chance?
Yes, I do. I'm trying to remember that specific. Yeah, I'm not sure if they ever explained why Shadow couldn't enter the other shatter spaces. I know like they kind of touched upon it on season 2 where he thinks, he theorized that if he stole the tech that Sonic was wearing, he could enter them, but I don't know if it gives a clear-cut answer of why Shadow couldn't enter the other shatter spaces.
So, how things happened was prior to Sonic fighting with everyone against the Badniks while Eggman was trying to grab the Paradox Prism, Sonic and Shadow had their small fight in which Shadow, he saw the whole. He had like, he had, I guess, precognition. I believe that's pre-recognition. I don't remember what the word's called, but basically, Shadow saw a vision of future events that would lead up to the Shadowverse forming, and he didn't know why, and he didn't know what exactly it was to him, but he knew that it all led to Sonic. So they had their fight within Green Hill, and then when Sonic noticed the blasts and fights coming from the Temple Mountain, Sonic distracted Shadow. Sonic ran to the mountain, and then Shadow followed behind in any way he could. And as soon as Shadow got there, Sonic was homing attacking Eggman, but hit the Paradox Prism. So, thankfully, Shadow had a Chaos Emerald that he found within Green Hill, and he used Chaos Control to basically he teleported from he teleported during the blast of the prism. So as he teleported from the Prime World, the blast caused the Shatter Spaces to form in the Shatterverse, and when he reappeared from the teleportation, he ended up in the void. So the main reason why Shadow wasn't able to go into the Shatter Spaces was because Sonic could, because Sonic was in the middle of the blast of the prism. So when the Paradox Prism broke, it not only broke into the 5 shards, but a bit of the prism energy was absorbed into Sonic's body, which kind of led to his shoes basically like lighting up with energy and such, like overflowing. Um, um, excuse me. So the main reason why Sonic was able to easily access the spaces was because he had the prism energy in his body, whereas Shadow didn't, because he chaos controlled into the Shadowverse. Whereas Sonic was at the center of its creation. And to also answer a follow-up question, because I know it's going to be brought up, because in season 3, two actually. One is that Shadow's only able to go into Ghost Hill because Ghost Hill hasn't like formed, as as Nine mentioned, the fact that it had the Shatter Space hasn't fully formed, so that's why Shadow's able to get in. And also a follow-up is that during season 3, when Nine was creating his perfect world in the Grim, the Shatter Spaces were starting to fracture and decay. And it was through the Grim also decaying that Shadow and Sonic were able to go into the splintered holes that are forming on the sides of the Shatter Space gateways, which are the big portals to the Shatter Spaces. So yeah, and yeah, another thing too is that Shadow thought that the regulators that Nine gave to Sonic in order to like pretty much normalize the energy within his body, he thought that those were the key into getting into the Shatter Spaces, but Shadow thought wrong because he only saw like blips every time he tried to get into the New York Gateway at the beginning of season 2, as we saw. So he didn't have the full context. So the regulators are really just to basically normalize the energy within Sonic's body. It's the energy itself in Sonic that he's able to travel through the Shatter Spaces, and that's what Shadow comes to the conclusion after their fight in the Void, which almost ultimately led up to Shadow's demise. But thankfully, Sonic was there to save him. So, yeah, that's basically how that works for Shadow. I don't really know if there's any other way I could explain it, but that is the best way I could explain it.
Yeah, because it was just very it's like I think my memory was failing me. I was like, did they kind of explain it, or it's like, or yeah, that's why I was a little bit confused. And then now that you're like bringing it up, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what it was. It's like, so basically, Sonic had some of the Paradox Prism energy in him. That's why he was able to enter any of the Shatter Spaces because he had, because I know in season 3, like Nine deduced that he, like, oh, the Paradox Prism doesn't have all of its energy, so um I know for a fact that Nine had to extract it out of Sonic so that way it will the energy will go back into the paradox prism. Because
Yeah.
because I know 9 was like overusing it where it started to fracture the other shatter spaces and everything. So because I know the extraction happened. I remember that from season 3 where it's like, oh, it's like we need to extract it, but it's also at the cost of your existence. So like because that's from what I remember, like with that. But I wasn't too sure about the shadow thing, so I was like, oh no, it's like I don't remember this. Oh boy.
No, totally cool. Totally okay.
Yeah, because it is a little like because the show is not flawless. It does not explain a lot of things. So that's why we're
There
not.
are some things that are explained in that sense, but not as thoroughly as some would expect, I suppose.
Yeah, like, but I am also curious about the different var the different variants of the characters. Like, does it do does it each like represent a part of the prime versions of the characters? I'm just very curious to know what you think about that.
That has been like the general like thought process when it comes to the character. Not to the original designers. I mean to us in the fandom. That's what we still think of them as, is that each of the Shadowverse variants within New York City, Boss Cage Maze, and the No Place, they are fragmented parts of the original counterparts. However, the way I'm looking at it, like, I'm not gonna doubt that's what the main reasoning is, but like, I honestly just do think that following the shattering of the Prime World is that each of the characters, they just have like their own representative in the Shadowverse, in the Shatter spaces, like 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 it's like I don't necessarily think it is like fragmented um personalities. Excuse me, just needed to yawn. I don't really think it's I don't think it's fragmented personalities unless I'm yet to be proven wrong. Um what I think is that it really is just the characters getting their own representatives within um in the respective universes. Like Tails has Mangy and Boss Cage. Uh, Tails has Sales in No Place. Tails has Nine in New York. Is like it had to fill a role of each character that from the Prime universe and such. Um, but at the same time, it's very weird to say because it could most likely be personalities. Because Eggman didn't have Boss Cage Maze or No Place representatives. He only had his shattered variants in New York City for no reason explanation. Literally, season 3 does not dwell on the origin. Like, we know how the Chaos Council came to be, but we don't know exactly why they were all in New York City and not there weren't any in the other worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Um and the Grim is a weird case because there was no one there. No there was nothing. The Grim was just a wasteland. Um so all I can really say is that it may as well be personalities, just to go off of the fact that there is like an issue there with like going off of the fact that like the variants may be representatives, but still, it's like, yeah, the show is not flawless at all.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
not.
very flawful,
Mm-hmm.
but oh well, what are you gonna do, huh? That's the best I can really speak on it, to be honest.
Yeah, because I know they touched upon that Amy loves nature, and that's why
That's when we get
yeah,
Thorn.
yeah, that's how we got Thorn, and And I was like, huh, this is so interesting. Like the concept is
Yeah,
very
all sorry. Yeah, no, all of like the different like the the Ghost Hill talks and such is just like it's yeah, you know. It's like yeah, like Tails telling like Sonic he'll always have a wingman, but in one universe that's not the case and we have 9. Amy talking about how the forest is a beautiful place on Earth. We get Thorn in Boss Cage. Knuckles Knuckles and Rouge are weird cases because like you know, I guess you can kind of lead that into their no New Yoke representatives as well, Rebel and Renegade. But it's kind of hard to tell. And then obviously Eggman's going on about how he'll finally take over the world and no one will be there to stop me, and that's yeah, the Chaos Council.
Yeah, like the Chaos Council, I feel they're just like they each represent like a part of Eggman's personality as well. Like, of course, the babble is like, oh, he whines every time he loses, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's representative by his baby, baby variant of him, and and yeah, like I think the Chaos Council was a very interesting. You know, we see different parts of Eggman's personality in all 5 of them. You know, like we can clearly see from, you know, like we can see like especially with Dr. Babel. Like every time he's whining and like I was just like, oh yeah, that's Eggman when when he doesn't get his way. He acts like a baby. And stuff, um but I found it interesting with like from piggybacking what you are saying that like yeah, we get like different parts of the prime versions of the characters with the variants, you know. We see more of like Amy wanting to protect nature with Thorn, you know, and then we kind of see more of the adventurous aspect with Dread. And you could say Rouge kind of takes point, if you know what I mean. Like she kind of takes leadership in some way with, you know, with Rebel, you know?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just found it very interesting. Each of the variants, like even though they represent a part of the prime versions of the characters, but they're still their own at the same time. You know, they still have their own thoughts. Like I kind of noticed, like especially when, like whenever Sonic meets, like when he meets any of the variants, he of Amy, he does not want to hurt them at all. Like you can see, he's like he still sees them as Amy, even though they have like different names. Like he still sees them, like he sees like an aspect of like a part of Amy's personality in each of them. You know, we can kind of see like the fiery, you know, the fiery temper with Thorn aspect of Amy in Thorn, and then we can kind of see the sarcasm, you could say the sarcasm aspect from Rusty, I would say, for, and then of course with you could say, I don't know, would Black Rose be the silly part of Amy? I don't know, what would you think on that?
Kind of hard for me to say. Again, it's not. It's you can only really like attach some of the variants to different characters, but then you start running out of personality connect to those characters, and it's
Mhm.
like I don't like. I guess like Dread represents Knuckles and him with treasure hunting and such, and Gnarly represents Knuckles being so gullible in that case, and also somewhat paranoid as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, there are some things there. It's just not it's kind of hard to get in contact with that of Man of Action, who are the writers of the show, So we have no idea what the thought processes were for these characters.
Mm-hmm.
At least it's not known. We only have to. The only thing we'd have to go off of is the context in the show.
Yeah, like for sure. I know with what was it? Yeah, because I remember when the show ended, like people were like wondering how come we did not spend time with the actual prime versions of these characters. I'm like, I think you know, this story is more centered around Sonic, you know, where, he goes through like a big, huge story arc, character story arc, um, and everything. And I think that's, you know, because I tell people this when it comes to Sonic Prime, it's not about the prime versions of these characters, it's about Sonic. Like, they actually, men, they actually revealed the synopsis for the series, and it's like, it really should have been obvious it is about Sonic and his character arc and growth throughout the 3 seasons. Because you do see him like realize, he starts to realize his mistake, especially, it was actually a good thing that Shadow was there to like tell him straight up, hey man, like you are the reason this happened. You know, like Shadow just like I agree with you, Radar. Shadow was portrayed he was portrayed really well in this show. Like, um like the way he's kind of like in a way he was kind of like guiding Sonic to do the right thing. He was like he had to give it to him straight. It's like, hey man, you caused you caused these shatter spaces to be made, you know, um, and everything. So yeah, like Shadow, I loved his portrayal in the show. It was great. um, but I think what was quite interesting about the what was it? What was the name of I think what I loved about one of Big's variants, like I'm pretty sure you caught this reference, Radar. Um his New York variant goes by Denizen 1998. I'm pretty sure you caught the reference of that, right? Of the year.
Yeah, I did. That is another thing that is, used because, yeah, 1998. That is that, that's Sonic Adventure's release date year, and that's when, Sonic Adventure is Big's debut. The same thing goes for the code to Tails' lab in the beginning of episode 1. The code to enter that Sonic knows is 1992, which was when Sonic 2 first came out, and that's Tails' debut. Um, I think, I think 1998 and Tails' Lab are like the only representatives with those kinds of references. But yeah, I pretty much caught on to those pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. I found that really clever. It's like they're really like paying homage. It's like, yeah, like what would Big's like variant in New York be? Because it's like, is he just a regular denizen? And they went with denizen, so that's what I found so interesting about that.
Pretty much. Like, okay, so looking at the shatter spaces, right? You can tell that the main three that are featured in the show by far, which are New York City, Boss Cage Maze, and the No Place, they have like their own like representatives from those worlds in the sense like um New York focuses a lot on Nine. Boss Cage Maze focuses a lot on Thorn. No Place focuses a lot on Dread.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Big and Rouge are kind of just there in the shadow spaces as well. Like, there isn't really a world to represent them. The Grim has nothing, and Ghost Hill is a replica. So, yeah, it's like the characters are kind of just there to be there. Like at least like characters like Rebel, like Rebel has a place in New York, of course. Prim is the leader of the scavengers. Batten, unfortunately, is really just there to follow orders in the crew under whoever is captain, and then Big's variants are just all there, and Froggy's variants as well. So it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, but but I would debate that Rebel and Renegade, they pretty much share it at the same time. Like I would debate, because like usually, like even though Rouge, any of Rouge's variants have any like shatter space that's centered around her, she does work alongside Renegade, you know in New York. So I would debate they kind of share it, because they're kind of the ones that's leading the others to like fight back against the Chaos Council in some way. So
We only have so much material to go off of Prime. I mean, kind of really goes to show how the show went. Again, not a bad thing, but we were talking about the lore of the show, so.
Yeah.
And also, I finally just had water, so now I can keep going for another hour. Woohoo!
Nice. Oh, but I'm trying to think where's I know I had another question. I'm trying to remember what episode it was. Let's see where.
Take all the time you need to remember.
Yeah, it's been like what 2 months since since we premiered this for Cartoon Nights and Revos.
Sonic Revolution, yes.
Let's see. Let's see, where is that? Oh yeah, I've been very curious, Radar. For the actual, when Shadow like actually made it to Ghost Place, so that way everything is repaired. Did it go back in time? Cause like if you kind of notice when Sonic, opens his eyes, it goes back maybe like a few minutes before he shattered. How did that happen? Like when they managed to fix, the paradox prism, how did that lead into that, when Shadow brought Sonic back to to their their shatter space, you could say.
3 possible answers to this, actually. Number 1, after reforming the paradox prism, we see it teleport, and it ends up back where, because Ghost Hill fully decayed and disintegrated, where in its place Green Hill reappeared, where out of the ghost its soul was brought back into it, and that was in the form of the paradox prism. Number 2, well, that's just it. It's called the paradox prism. Yes, it's and excuse me, like, of course there was bound to be some weird time line shenanigans and whatnot within that sort of time frame. Really, it's just wow. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say, really. And then number 3, I don't know. Yeah, like, again, what with it being called Paradox Prism, it being like the center of this whole Shatterversal adventure, and then it being fully reformed, and then it returns back to where it once was before the shattering. It's like kind of puts emphasis on the name, but it's like, how did that happen? And it's just like, again, it's like I mentioned earlier, like, do the shattered spaces continue to exist? Do we know that everyone returned home? Is or do the just is it because everything went back in time, the Shadowverse just no longer exists? It's just like there was not anything to explain anything, and that's also the funny part, really, is that the show was advertised to have 24 episodes, and by the end of season 3 we only had 23. People have said that it's pretty much because of the first episode, because it's the length of 2 episodes in one. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Would have been nice to know that.
Yeah.
So it is. The show contradicts itself on a lot of levels. Sometimes.
Yeah, because it was a little confusing, It's like I do agree. It's like it's very confusing. Like I do not understand why. It's like, okay, we get it. We have to, you know, reform the paradox prism, right? And then when Shadow and Sonic return, it's like, did it go back in time before, a few minutes before Sonic shattered the thing? I was like, and the thing is, you can kind of tell that Sonic and Shadow kept their memories too, which is interesting because
Yeah.
because when they're fighting, Dr. Eggman, so he doesn't get the paradox prism, like he sees Shadow, and Shadow, you can clearly tell just from his expression that he remembers everything, and he actually has the emerald with him. So, um, like, so it's like, huh, okay, so Sonic and Shadow actually kept their memories of the entire series. And of course the others have no clue about this, you know. So it's like yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like did like when it went back to where it was, did it go back in time? Like it's like they do not explain it at all. So that's why I was confused by that. I'm like, did it go back in time? You know, before a few minutes before Sonic shattered the paradox prism, I'm like, So that part confused me when the finale happened. I was just like, okay, we're just gonna leave it like that. You're not going to explain why this happened.
You've got the questions that I also have been asking, so much so that I just don't have the answers.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have the answers for these questions in regards, like, it. All we have to go off is what is shown in the show. We don't have anything else to really explain it, and I'm not really sure, because yeah, I know people have been trying to ask Ian the show as well, but he wasn't the main writer on the show. He was just a consultant for pushing the lore aspects into the show and such, to make it more in line with the canon. But fortunately, that fell flat through. So yeah.
um,
Yep.
it was it was like, yeah, like like it was just, yeah, that ending was just like, okay, you don't want to explain this, but okay.
Mhm.
Like,
Uh, oh, Monarch, did you have something to ask in regards to the show?
Oh wait, I didn't prepare. Um,
Just
in
anything
regards,
on your mind that I can explain to you. I'm sure we probably already talked about it, but just asking.
um, hmm, do I have anything? Um, I'm kind of drawing a blank, and I not really. Like in terms of like lore or just story wise?
Just anything.
Anything. All right. Um, I guess in your personal opinion, would the whole season 3, would it have worked as a movie rather than a season?
Ooh.
I have seen some people say that because of the way the pacing went for season 3. And like really just of like the fact that it really was more the pacing during the final battle between Nine and the Alpha Grims versus Sonic and all of the Shadow variants and whatnot. It's like I can agree. Like I don't really mind the way it went in these episodes. I don't mind it at all really. But like if they wanted to do like a final season like whole like movie special sort of thing, I would have been fine with that too. That would have been nice. Um heck, if they went with like the movie special, I feel like they could have like explained some things a little bit better there also within that context instead of an episode by basis. But I'm I'm impartial. Like I'm fine with either or. Like I think like the movie idea could actually be really cool. I don't think a Sonic show has done something like that. Technically, I don't know. Someone has to come back to me on that because I don't really actually know. But like I feel like it would have been cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I understand. That actually explained it really well.
It's just me though. I believe that there are still people answering questions over on YouTube. So let me pull that up again. Here we go. Sullen talked about it. Oh, I have a question. What did you think of the whole thing with Sonic's kicks and his gloves, and which version of his shoes and gloves is your favorite? So, yes. What I thought of the whole thing. So, to give context to that in particular is that when I mean it's right there in the first episode. I don't really think it's much of a needed to be explained sort of thing. But when Sonic is given the regulators by Nine, his the as the energy normalizes within its body, the regulators adapt the energy into his shoes and gloves. They are still his regular, his regular gloves and shoes, but they get tuned with the energy instead of resisting it. So to the point where they transform based on the shattered spaces that they're in. So um in so in so when Sonic applies the regulators in New York City, they are basically just a new design. They don't really change anything. They just give Sonic a little bit of like they just yeah, they just give him that speed boost with the prism energy. It doesn't really change anything. But also the fact that it's like, oh, new designs, whatnot. But there are 3 different powers that come with the shatter spaces and in relation to the regulators. Over in Boss Cage Maze, Sonic shoes are given Sonic shoes and his gloves are given claws, in which he's able to climb up trees and do a bunch of parkour that he wasn't able to do before. They're called the Boss Cage Blades, according to those on the official Netflix Twitter and YouTube. In no place, Sonic's shoes are given the ability to they're given like they're able to turn into hovercrafts, and Sonic can run on water using them, and they are called the hovercraft kicks. And then over in the Grim, Sonic's shoes and gloves are able to create hexagonal platforms in which he's able to run on air. Like it's like appearing and disappearing platforms that he can just generate from his shoes, and then also he can create shields from his gloves with those same hexagonal powers and such. They don't have a name, um, but personally, for me, if I wanted to like rank them, it would be third place would be the hovercraft kicks. I do think they're cool. Actually, no. No. It would be from chronological order. So third place goes to the Boss Cage blades. I do think they're useful. It's just that, and yes, they are cool, just not in the cool way I think that the other ones are. Second place is the hovercraft kicks. I really like just Sonic running on water in his own way, but like him just being able to run infinitely on water with the hovercrafts is just that much cooler. And then like my favorite ability is his upgrades in the Grim. Oh my gosh, just him running on platforms just appearing out of nowhere, and then the shields as well, deflecting the blasts from the final battle. I really like those ones in particular. It's a shame that they don't have a name. Like they gave the names before season 3 came out, and I feel like it would have been best if they like waited on that. It's just like, oh dang. Yeah, the power up in the Grim is my favorite. To answer your question, Solon.
Oh.
All right. See here. Anybody got another question?
Hmm. Um.
Leah, Monarch, anything?
I'm trying to think.
No, it's been such a long while, so I'm like, okay, I need to like refresh my memory.
Yeah, it's been a
Once
while
again,
since I watched it.
once again, folks, there is only so much of Prime we can talk about. There's only so much material we can take out of this. Because otherwise we would have pretty much covered everything important.
Keyword.
I will say this at least is that yeah, I will go ahead and say this is that Prime also has a problem being canon with just the way Sonic acts in the show. Yeah, it is mainly because of how Sonic acts. Sonic is different compared to like not he's just a little bit different in his characterization compared to the games and even in IDW, where some would say that he seems like a lot less experienced in this sense. Like this feel like in terms of how Sonic feels in this sense, it feels like he's coming off of the adventure games. Like heck, just off of Adventure 1 even. Like this doesn't feel like the Sonic we see from this is definitely not the Sonic we know that we've seen from Sonic Frontiers. Not the Sonic we knew once, from Forces. And that's kind of where the problem with Prime's Prime's placement in the timeline comes from. Because yes, by technicality we have it as a nebulous point sometime after the events of Advance 3. And by technicality, what with Orbot and Cubot being here, going off of Unleashed, and then Colors go straight into Generations because of that context. So by technicality, we would have Prime be placed after the events of Generations and before Lost World, which does make sense only because how Sonic is written in Lost World is at least of similar vein to how he is in Prime, to where it could make sense. And also what with Tails being upset in that game, and in Prime Sonic has verbally stated that he has never seen Tails so upset before, which wouldn't be the case if Lost World had already passed by in events. So, but again, it really is mainly Sonic's characterization, and there's nothing wrong with his characterization in Prime. Like he works in Prime in that sense. It's just that when the show is based off of Sonic learning to not be so hasty in his actions and trying to you know basically in Prime he tries to basically skip ahead to he basically skips the game cutscenes and goes straight on to the fight rather than heeding the words of his friends, if I had to put it in that way. So it's just like, it's all about Sonic self-reflecting on taking his friends for granted, which doesn't really seem right with Sonic. Like, if you were making Sonic out to be a different character in a different context, like Prime was, it makes sense. But if you're trying to tie him to how he is in the games, it's just like Sonic does listen to his friends, and just on the one time that in Lost World he didn't really listen to Tails, that was just because Sonic was just doing what he seemed to be right at the time. He didn't know about the cacophonic conch, and it controlling the Zeddy. He just knew that it was a bad thing for Eggman to have it. And yes, it was a bad thing for Eggman to have it because he had total control of the Zeddy, but it ultimately ended up leading to what happened then at Desert Ruins, which was the Zeddy taking full control of the Eggman Empire on the Lost Hex and Eggman's plans with the Extractor. But even still, Sonic was doing that because that was just what he thought was right at the time. That is a lot of what Sonic does. Is just that he a lot of Sonic's actions are just because they seem right to him. They may not be right to other people, but it's right to him. Whereas it doesn't really count in relation from the games to Prime and all of that. So yeah. Which is something I do want to talk about closer towards the end in regards to Prime's canonicity, but I'll leave that for something else. I mean, I'll leave that for later. So, anyways, other questions? Other questions, guys? Now that I finished talking, anyways.
There was one in the chat from Dolius. Do you mind if I read that?
Oh, Dolius. Yeah, go ahead and read it. I wasn't paying attention to the chat, but you can go ahead and read it off.
Dolius says, so what about that giant Eggman? Any thoughts on that?
Yes. So that was a thing. Yes. So constructed out of the reserved prism energy that the Chaos Council had on their mothership, Mr. Dr. Eggman commenced a plan which was to truly finish off Sonic and their new adversary in Shadow, because that was the first time they encountered him. And that was in the form of a prismatic titan, which Nine called it in that sense. I don't know. This is another weird thing, because the prismatic titan took up the form of Eggman Prime. And it's very weird because okay, so the Chaos Council know of Eggman Prime then? Or did they just I don't know. It's very hard to explain. So all I can really say is just the prismatic titan exists, and all there really is to it is that it took up the form of Eggman Prime, and the Chaos Council just simply used it to fight Sonic, in which Nine retaliated with the Prism Shards in the form of Shatter Sonic, which is the transformation that Sonic. I don't know the explanation to this one. I'm sorry. It's just that. Oh, do they know about Eggman Prime? No. Was it pure coincidence that it took that form? Is it just it's like the prism energy has memory? It's so confusing. I don't know what to say.
It do be like.
Yeah, but that was super confusing because I was like, yeah, I had the same questions as you, Radar. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Do the Chaos Council know about Prime Eggman? I'm like, yeah, that's a bit weird.
Yeah, and that's the only variation of him that there is. He's not in the Boss Cage Mage or the I forgot what the pirate one was.
The No Place.
No place.
No Place. Yeah, and he wasn't in the No Place either.
Yeah, I commented on that earlier, where Eggman only had representatives in New York City than the other worlds.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I feel like that kind of makes sense for him in a way. Because if you think about it, there's like, I mean, we haven't explored much of the Boss Cage Mage, but really there wasn't any people to begin with, just them. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, I got a question real quick.
Oh, that's exists, I suppose.
I feel like you may know this, and I just want confirmation. But when you're watching Sonic Prime, right, and there's always 8 episodes for each season, right? Why is there only 7 in season 3?
That's another thing I commented on earlier, where yeah, that is another thing I commented on from earlier, is that it's possible that the first episode took up 2 episodes, which okay, that probably would have been nice to know, is like, oh, the first episode counts as 2 episodes, so that's why there's only 23 in total, when oh, technically there's 24 as advertised, but again, would have been nice to know.
Well, you were saying deceivers.
Oh, I see another question from Dullius. Was there any worlds that you wish were in Prime, like a ninja world? Ooh.
I don't know. I've never really thought on the matter, to be honest. It's just,
Oh,
yeah, I honestly don't really know. It's
Yeah. Because
I just I can't really think of anything original when it comes to the other worlds. Yeah, sorry, Delius. I can't really think of anything. I know a lot of people have like delved into like, oh, ninja worlds, oh, cowboy world, and it's like, yeah, like that's your idea. I'm not gonna take it or anything. It's like, yeah.
speaking of that, I saw a headcanon where Sonic Prime, like when he travels to another dimension, it travels into the Sonic Boom universe.
That is, yeah, that is one thing that was often talked about when it comes to the series and such, is that um sorry about that. Yeah, the fact that because Sonic Prime was said to be a multiversal like take on the series and such, like, oh, this is it, guys. We can get Sonic Boom back, Sad AM. We can get the comics, and it's like, so hold your horses. Oh my gosh. It's like, oh, wow, okay, a little bit going a bit too fast there.
Great concept, but a little bit too expensive for licensing.
I'd imagine so. What with Sega's current situations when it comes to licensing and everything, it's it's confusing, and like, uh, I don't know. I really don't know. It's what happened happened. So that's all I can really say on the matter.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I think it's like you discussed when I asked about the different powers of the different shards that played a specific role in creating the different shatter spaces. The green one, of course, was kind of more in has nature, right? So I think that was the whole point that each of the shards of the paradox prism had like was kind of reflecting of that ability it had in creating the different shatter spaces at the same time. So I think that's what they were going for. It was more of a story plot point, instead of going down the route of, like, oh yeah, let's just do a huge Sonic crossover, right? With all the other like previous iterations of it. um, but I think they were trying to go for more of, you know, the paradox prism at the center of it has like different powers and abilities that reflects it into each of the shadow spaces. That's just my thoughts on it, on that. Instead of just making it, the typical obvious multiverse, if you know what I mean. Because multiverse has been a trend and trope that's been around for a long time. um, but yeah, it's like you said, Monarch. It would be very expensive if they went down the route of like, oh yeah, let's have Sonic cross into like Adventures of Sonic or or Sonic Sat AM or Sonic X or Sonic Boom or anything. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that.
it's it just yeah,
Okay, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Trying to think if there's one more question I might have for you, Radar.
Is there not any more questions?
I don't see any more in the
I
chat.
don't see any more either. Well, if we're coming down to the end, I can just talk about what I was going to talk about earlier, if that's okay.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
So I know it was said to be with Sonic Prime being part of the mainline canon. I know what was said, and sometimes there are just some things that don't really work out in execution, and this was one of them. Not just like Sonic Prime has a difficult time being canon compared to Sonic IDW. It isn't a bad thing. It isn't a bad thing at all. It's just that one works well in the other. It's just like IDW was clearly written off of the context of the games. That is what Ian did with the start of IDW, and that's what it's always been. Is that
Ian
it
caused
branched
slap.
off
Ian
of
caused slap.
it branched off of IDW Sonic. It branched off of Sonic Forces, and through that, the rest of the game's canon, in particular. Whereas Prime was built off as its own thing, and because of that, when it was brought into canon, it didn't particularly work. It was like Prime was meant to be its own thing, but Sega insisted on it being canon, and I know that some people have commented on the fact that it would make more sense that it wasn't canon, and that would be the case. But a lot of the things that are made, part of the main canon is because that's what Sega decided on. IDW being canon, all of the decisions of different games being canon, like the Game Gear games and a bunch of the obscure spin-off games, and even Prime in this example. All of this is because that's what Sega wanted. And you could say, well, then what's the lore team for? The lore team, their job is to make sense of what Sega wants. That's what they're currently doing, and that's what they're doing with the official timeline, is that Sega gives them the go-ahead of what is canon, and they just work on every event in relation to each other from there. It's like, it's not really on the lore team, despite them being connected to, all the canon stuff. It all comes down to Sega. And no matter how silly it may be, Prime, as of right now, is still considered canon to Sega, which it doesn't make sense. And I acknowledge it to the point where I still consider Prime to be its own thing, but sometimes the truth is the truth. And that's all I really have much to say on that. This is like, yeah. It all comes down to Sega, and maybe there'll come a time where Sega will realize maybe this isn't such a good idea. But as of right now, they're pretty settled on this.
I did see a question from Rainboom, but I think I believe you answered this question earlier, right, Radar?
Which one?
It says to Radar from Rainboom, since you mentioned it on the different versions of the characters in the Shadowverse, which versions of the character you most likely your favorite? I think you answered that a bit.
Yes, I did answer that. I liked all of the roses. I liked all of the foxes. I particularly liked Renegade Nuts and Rebel Rouge. Dr. Deep and Dr. Don't are my favorites from the Chaos Council. And in terms of like the robot characters, I did like Chaos Sonic a lot. I really did. The Bigs exist, the Birdies exist, the Froggies exist. They're just there. I think if I had to choose one big counterpart that I really liked, I guess I'd give it to Hangry Cat, just because he had a lot more lines compared to the other two. Like Denizen 1998 like barely talks, and Catfish only has like a few moments. Like Hangry Cat, he pretty much just talks, and like, sure, I'll just give it to him. And then again, the Froggies and the Birdies exist. But yeah, that's pretty much my stance on that. Yeah, I've already answered it before.
I got another one. Okay. It doesn't have to be your favorite character, just character in your opinion. Which character, it can be like Sonic, Shadow, or even the different variations of the crew. Which do you think was the most well written?
Oh, I said it. Yeah, I did answer that as well. Shadow, by far. Shadow was the best part of the show, and I still stand by that. He really was just the best part of it. Best characterization of him we've had in recent years, and I would love to see whoever wrote him in particular for those episodes that he appeared in to basically be brought over to basically write for him. Because like, if Sega allowed that for Shadow, I feel like it'd be fun. Like, yeah, like it makes sense because Shadow is meant to like, this Shadow in particular is meant to bounce off of Sonic from Sonic Prime, but I feel like that this would also work in the context of the games, and even more so in IDW, if we're taken in the context. Like, Shadow and IDW had a very, very rough start in terms of his characterization. He was okay, then he fumbled a little bit down the line, but he's been getting better. Not entirely 100% great, like most people would want him to be, like off of 06 or so, but like he has been getting better, and that's a good thing. Whereas like in the games, well, we don't know. We're gonna find out when Sonic and Shadow Generations comes out, but that's a tale we're gonna have to still wait for. But yeah, by far, characterization, Shadow. Shout out to Ian Hamlin once more.
Fair.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Okay. Looks like do you have any other questions, Monarch?
Mm, actually, it's gonna be kind of almost the same thing, but not well, almost the same thing, but not really. Um, which okay, between the two or not two, three worlds, not including Green Hills because we barely got any info. Which would you say was the most well written?
Ooh.
Which one exactly? What?
Like
Sorry.
between the three worlds that Prime gave us, which one would you say was the most well written? It doesn't have to be your favorite, just in your opinion.
I wouldn't say well written. I feel like it's more for the characters, but like more like well designed and developed is
Yeah, that's better.
New York City, definitely, just because of how it is definitely far more like used than the other worlds, and we have a lot more emphasis put on it in like the beginning of season one, the middle of season two, the beginning of season three. It's like New York City has shown up a lot more compared to the other worlds, and like I guess second place would go to the Grim, just because there's a lot of foreshadowing it for what Nine would do to it, and then we come to the climax in the show. But that's all there is to it, to be honest. But yeah, New York City by far. Mm-hmm.
Mm. Ah, okay.
Okay. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
And on that note, unfortunately, we will have to end this live stream. It was so great to finally at least get a little bit of answers to understand the story of Sonic Prime and the mysteries of the Paradox Prism and how and its mysterious powers and everything. Like this was so much fun to ask you, Radar. At least I know it's very difficult to answer some of the questions, because they left a lot of unanswered questions about their lore for in the TV show. But I want to thank you for tackling this TV show, Radar. Like I'm pretty sure it was very difficult to tackle this one in terms of the lore, because of what we're just given from the show. That's all we can pretty much know about the TV show. And and yeah, we be sure to tune in on March 30th here on my YouTube channel at 5:30 p.m. PT, 8:30 p.m. ET for the next episode of Goddess Spotlight with Leah Serenity Rose, where Kevin and we will be doing a Q&A with Minho Kim, one of the Sonic IDW comic artists and a lead artist of the Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog game, which we are doing this special Q&A anniversary to celebrate the 1 year anniversary when the game came out. So
Oh boy, oh, I can't wait for that. I'm really excited about that one.
yeah. And of course, on April 2nd, at 5 p.m. PT, 8 p.m. ET, we have the next episode of Tangle and Blaze Tangle Fiery Shenanigans. Which, of course, we will be doing a Q&A with Duo and what he has been up to. So be sure to tune in to that, everyone. And I am in the works of more episodes of my Q&A series, Got a Spotlight with Leah Serenity Rose. Meanwhile, with the Lucky Charm podcast, it's a little bit slow because because G is very busy with college, so it's when she's available too. But do not worry, we are still in the planning of more Lucky Charm podcast episodes as well. But be sure to tune in to these upcoming ones that are confirmed. I am also And be sure to stay tuned for more song covers. Song covers are a little bit slow, but I am collabing with more for more song covers, so stay tuned, everyone. And may you all have a wonderful night. Thank you all for tuning in, and also be sure to like and subscribe. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so I can bring you guys more content.
Well said.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
All in day's work.
Thanks for sticking with me, folks.